1980, the Iranian embassy siege was when Britain's Special Air Service Regiment blasted their way into the news. An elite military force used speed, aggression and surprise to rescue a group of hostages from the hands of murderous terrorists. This new series reenacts and recalls their heroism and bravery in the face of adversity. SAS, The Soldier's Story, starts Thursday at 9 on Yorkshire.
Every time you start your car from cold, it takes a while for your engine to get full protection from its oil. Metal grinds against metal. The damage is permanent. Castrol GTX Magnatec works differently. Unique, polarized molecules clinch like a magnet, dramatically reducing engine wear. Protect from the moment you turn the key with GTX Magnatec, the new oil from Castrol.
Every month, thousands are coming back to BT. What is it that they like so much?
I've noticed that the prices have started to drop.
I found the prices were most competitive.
They're considerably lower than they were before.
Before, you had to pay to the nearest unit. Now you pay for what you use.
If you've left us, we want you to come back too, so we've set up a special helpline.
My bills are cheaper than what they were when I was on BT before.
A penny a minute at the weekend is excellent.
The more cuts, the better.
100 minutes on the phone for £1.
He never stops
For
talking.
full details, call free phone 0800 800 060.
Someone has sun care, which is protective, effective, and safe. Sun care you can trust. Boots Sultan.
It's been 2 weeks.
What do you mean?
I mean every day for 2 weeks.
Every day?
Every day.
And it's good?
It's very good.
2 weeks, huh?
Oh yeah.
What does your wife think?
She thinks it's great. You should try it.
Oh, I'm gonna try it.
Good.
They're talking about Kellogg's All Bran. It's very high in wheat bran fiber. Make it part of your complete breakfast and see how you feel.
How do you feel about it?
Good.
You feel good.
I knew that I would.
Kellogg's All Bran cereal. Try it for 2 weeks. Love it forever.
At Allied Carpet, spend as little as £500 and pay nothing until September, with 3 years 0% credit and only 10% deposit now.
Network First follows a year at Highclere Castle, a year of change, as the ancestral home of the Earl of Carnarvon is thrown into the 90s, where debt has to turn to profit.
How the hell are you supposed to be create an effective, efficient management team if in reality they do exactly what they want to do because they've always done it this way?
While the hatchet falls, the Earl and his son bet on one horse to win big money. Network First, high stakes at Highclere, Tuesday at 10:40 on Yorkshire.
We've a programme change later tonight. At 12:10, we've a Your Match special with highlights of Bradford City's match at Wembley today. That's followed at 1:10 by Oasis Live by the Sea. But now in Yorkshire, it's news time.
From the studios of ITN, the news with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening, welcome to the programme. Tonight's headlines. A Tory MP threatens to wipe out government majority over handling of the beef crisis. Road rage enters the highway code, and worries for Venables as England fail to deliver Eastern promise. The Conservative MP and former Minister George Walden is threatening to resign the party whip over John Major's handling of the beef crisis. He's attacked the Prime Minister's anti-European stance as silly and cynical. Some colleagues say they sympathise with his views. Here's our political correspondent, Hugh Pym.
George Walden is toying with a move which would wipe out the government's Commons majority. He was appalled, he said, by the Prime Minister's threat to disrupt European business. He described it as a foolish policy which had led him, he told me, to consider his position as a Conservative MP.
So might you consider resigning the whip or becoming an independent Conservative before the next election?
I think we've had many rash actions in the last few weeks, and I don't want to add to that, but I do think that there could come a stage if the party does slide off into sort of rather vulgar nationalistic populism, where some people, including myself, might ask themselves what they're doing in that party.
And he found sympathy from one pro-European Conservative colleague.
I can understand his anxieties, and many people will share them, but I think that we have to have confidence in the government's ability to manage this crisis effectively.
All this as the European Commission President, Jacques Santer, rejected British demands for a timetable leading to a lifting of the beef ban.
We cannot, in our office, decide how long it lasts, what would be the timetable, and so on. That is very counterproductive.
And with Tory right-wingers expressing their anger at Jacques Santer's comments, John Major's now facing conflicting pressures within his party. George Walden is not the only Conservative MP, I understand, who'd find it very difficult to support the government if the war with Europe is intensified. Hugh Pym, ITN, Westminster.
The Department of Transport announced today that, from July, so-called road rage will be featured in the Highway Code. Drivers will be given tips on avoiding tense situations which recently have led to violence and even death. Adrian Britton reports.
A minor road accident. Here, the drivers stay calm. But what was once thought of as an American phenomenon is now officially recognised as one of Britain's modern-day menaces. Exactly a week since Stephen Cameron was stabbed to death in a row with another driver, the Department of Transport says advice on dealing with road rage will feature for the first time in the Highway Code. The tips to be included acknowledge a driving error that annoys another motorist, even if it means apologising. Also, avoid eye contact with other drivers in tense situations, and perhaps most importantly, never leave your car if threatened. But motoring organisations say the advice isn't enough.
But we think a more practical way forward is to address attitude while new drivers are learning, particularly young new drivers.
The RAC believes counselling could help stop road rage. As happens with drink drivers at the moment, aggressive drivers will be made to talk about their behaviour in the hope that that may stop them re-offending. Although senior officers believe aggressive driving is best tackled with highly visible policing and camera surveillance.
All these are weapons in our armoury to ensure that we have a much better view of what's going on the roads.
There'll now be a widespread media campaign telling drivers keep your cool when provoked. Adrian Britton, ITN.
Police have tonight recovered a body found near the wreck of a fishing boat which sank off the Ayrshire coast yesterday. The Equinox went down off the Heads of Ayr. 3 men are still missing. One woman who spent hours in the water has been rescued. A man's been charged with murder after a football fan died in a fight outside Wembley Stadium. Kelvin Noon died after a fight before yesterday's 3rd Division playoff between Plymouth Argyle and Darlington. And a British Hawk jet crashed during an air show in Portugal today. It happened when the Hawk came close to a Portuguese Air Force jet during manoeuvres. The plane came down without injuring spectators, and the pilot ejected safely. Israel's political leaders battled it out this evening in a televised debate just 3 days before the country's general election. The Prime Minister Shimon Peres and his right-wing challenger Benjamin Netanyahu clashed over the peace process and Israel's security. Our correspondent Robert Moore reports from Jerusalem.
With just 1 day left for campaigning, Prime Minister Shimon Peres arrived at the TV studios, knowing the debate could have a crucial impact on his bid to retain power. His right-wing opponent, Benjamin Netanyahu, believes he is rapidly gaining ground and is predicting a shock victory in Wednesday's vote. This is the only time the two candidates, with such different visions of Middle East peace, have confronted each other, attempting to sway those voters still undecided. Mr. Netanyahu said that Israelis were now living in perpetual fear of bombs. Mr. Peres hit back, accusing his opponent of spreading panic. Much of the country watched the debate. Most commentators called it a draw, saying this election is still too close to call. The most interested spectator to it all today was President Yasser Arafat. His hopes for a Palestinian state will be shattered if Israel's right wing comes to power. So great is the fear of a terrorist strike by Islamic or Jewish militants that 20,000 troops are on the streets and all Palestinians are barred from entering Israel. Even with such tough measures, the security forces are issuing repeated warnings of the threat of suicide bombings. Many Israelis believe such an attack could cost Mr. Peres this election. Robert Moore, ITN, Jerusalem.
Campaigners in Burma pledged to continue their fight for democracy despite the arrests of over 250 of them. Today, the Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi, who leads the opposition, told a historic conference of the National League for Democracy they must not give in to the regime's bullying. British holidaymakers in Mallorca say they're furious they weren't told about the meningitis outbreak on the island. 2 children died of the disease a few days ago. Now 2 more children have caught it. Some tourists say they had to rely on the British press for information. Hal Jones reports from Mallorca.
Soaking up the Spanish sunshine, but kept in the dark about a deadly disease. That's the claim of British holidaymakers at this apartment complex in Mallorca. 3-year-old Thomas O'Neill suffered a bout of meningococcal septicemia, one of the gravest forms of meningitis. But the first that families in neighbouring apartments knew of the outbreak was when they read it days later in an English newspaper.
Disgusted, really disgusted. I mean, surely, if you've got a rep here, they should be keeping you well informed.
Hospital treatment is helping Thomas O'Neill back to health, but another victim is making slower progress. 5-year-old Michaela Leyland is likely to stay in the intensive care unit here at Palmer's main hospital for at least another 24 hours. Privately, Spanish authorities are insisting that both British children had their infections before they arrived in Mallorca. Each day brings yet more arrivals. The health department says it is safe to travel to Mallorca.
As long as he's all right, we shall be all right.
Young and old, they're hoping for a happy, healthy holiday. Howell Jones, ITN, Palmer.
Cricket. India have set England a target of 236 in the 3rd one-day test. Indian captain Mohammad Azharuddin hit a brilliant unbeaten 73 in a match disrupted by rain. England have already lost captain Mike Atherton, who went second ball. They resume tomorrow on 2 for 1. Football. Bradford are celebrating promotion to the First Division after beating Notts County. They won 2-0 in the playoff at Wembley with goals from Des Hamilton and Mark Stallard. And the England squad failed to impress against a Hong Kong side today. It was the last warm-up match before manager Terry Venables announces his Euro 96 squad. It should have been goals galore, but instead it was just 1-0. Gareth Furby reports.
Against an invited team of golden oldies, this was England's chance to shine, but their play was about as colourful as their grey strip. In the opening seconds of the game, England's defence was nearly caught out. The breakthrough only coming in the 34th minute. A chip from Sheringham, finished off by Les Ferdinand. But early in the second half, it seemed the Hong Kong side was making all the running. England only saved by goalkeeper David Seaman. The match may have been billed as shooting practice, but England were stopped again and again. In the closing minutes, they seemed to improve. But it was hardly convincing, some fans even booing. England will have to do better in Euro 96. Gareth Furby, ITN.
And that is it from ITN this evening. From all of us here, goodbye.
Hello, good evening. Well, today was grey for most of us, wet for many too, but there's much better news on the way for tomorrow. Things may not look too promising in the morning, particularly across England and Wales. A cloudy start with patchy rain and drizzle, but the brighter weather in the north will spread south across the whole of Britain during the day, even reaching the southeast during the afternoon, so a better day in store. At the moment, though, there's still a lot of cloud across Britain, outbreaks of rain as well. Heaviest, I think, in the north and western parts of Britain there, light and patchy in the southeast. A mild night for us all, as you can see. There's no frost around, but a strong wind from the west blowing across southern parts of Britain. Tomorrow morning will be grey and overcast for many of us. Still a few spots of rain and drizzle left, but already it's a good deal brighter across Scotland and Northern Ireland. As we go through the day, that brighter weather will spread south right across the rest of Britain, the cloud eventually clearing the southeast during the afternoon. An odd shower perhaps in the far northeast, but for most of us a much brighter afternoon than we've had recently. Temperatures typically around 15 or 16, that's about 61, but the winds will be coming down the North Sea, so the east coast will be quite chilly, even in the sunshine. Good night.
Sponsored by PowerGen, generating electricity, whatever the weather.
Katrina and the Waves, Boyzone, Louise and Runrig will launch the Get Up and Give Roadshow in Edinburgh. Bank Holiday Monday, 7:30 on GMTV.
Bringing power to your home. Yorkshire Electricity, sponsors of the YTV weather.
Hello there. Well, it had to rain today, didn't it? Typical bank holiday weather, and it's going to stay unsettled for tomorrow, I'm afraid. Tonight's details, first of all, starts off dry, but rain will gradually spread south from the north and misty up on the tops as well. Lowest temperature typically around 10 degrees Celsius. 30 sun times for tomorrow, just 3 weeks away from the solstice now. Tomorrow then it starts off rather grey and misty, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, but gradually sunshine will spread south across the region, and it'll be a nice end to the day, I think, especially in Pennine areas. Top temperature tomorrow typically 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, a little on the chilly side, especially down the coast there. There we go, and I wish you a very good evening now and leave you with tomorrow's summary.
Next, Bob Monkhouse and Stephen Fry are the special guests of Clive James.
One of Doritos' 10 million free scratch cards, you could win up to £1,000. Or on the next scratch, lose it all. Are you man enough to risk it? You dare do a Doritos scratch card.
Let's have a look in my dad's study.
Hey, I wonder what he's hooked up to.
Are you kidding? He'll go berserk.
The 1996 Car of the Year. 2 different cars built around one vision. Fiat Bravo 3-door hatchback, Fiat Brava 5-door fastback.
Let's take a closer look.
No, look, I'll do it.